Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Mana Dorks Podcast episode. I guess we'll make this episode 8, technically, with my co-host, McB. How's it going, McB?
It is very good. What is happening? People out there watching and listening to us.
Yeah,
you made a good choice.
Yeah, it's kind of different. We're not live this time. In fact, we are filming this on Sunday, September 2nd, because I wanted to go over the Guilds of Ravnica spoilers, but I didn't want to dedicate spoilers in the same episode as a bunch of news because, as a lot of you may know, we haven't posted an episode in a couple weeks because of scheduling issues. So as a result, this next upcoming episode on Thursday, we're going to have a lot of news to talk about. So we're just moving all the spoilers to this episode, and I'm going to edit all in post and make it look nice for y'all. So
Sparkles.
Yeah, make it all look super fancy and shit. So before we jump into the spoilers, did you get a chance to play any Magic between our last episode?
I think the only Magic that I got to play was with you, man.
Yeah, we met up, what was it, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, roughly something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a blast.
Yeah, played some Commander, some 3-player games. What were the decks? I played with colorless first, right? I played with Kozilek.
Yeah, that deck sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Well, no, actually, because I have a bunch of bad cards in there. It's not a very good deck, but the cards that I used in there managed to eke out some advantage. Like our third player was playing a Thraxamundar deck that wanted to use stuff in their graveyard, and then I casted turn 1 Scrabbling Claws, so I was able to eat up your graveyard a bit and a lot of his, not expecting him to have like his flashback stuff. But yeah, Scrabbling Claws isn't really that good. I wouldn't play it in any other. No, it's pretty bad. But
it is a colorless spell, and it does draw you a card if you work hard enough at it. So
yeah, bad. Relic of Progenitus is bad.
It's a win. It's a win in my world.
I don't even have Relic of Progenitus in that deck yet. I definitely should. It's much better than Scrabbling Claws.
Yeah, so we got to play some Commander. I played my Azuri deck, and then our third player, even though he was gracious enough to be kind of not the link between us, but like he was there in good faith, and he did not get any wins while we were playing. But I think he got some good enjoyment out of it because he got to totally dominate our faces for multiple turns because his deck is quite good.
I was about to say he's playing the Thraxamundar deck, so it's very lethal. And if you aren't on top of it, if you never really played against a Thrax player before, the earlier you can suppress him, the better, because it's an explosive general. Turn 7, you're on a clock as soon as the Thrax player gets 7 mana.
Yeah, a giant, hasty guy with basically the Abyss attached to him.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad.
And it was real fun for me because I was the Kozilek player and I couldn't cast any creatures. And whenever I was able to cast Kozilek, he would just be able to Thrax it right into the graveyard. So it's a great time for me. But with the second game, I was able to use the Saheeli deck. And that was the very first time I played with that deck. First time I also played with the Kozilek deck too. But the Saheeli deck, like her as a commander, is a lot more explosive than I had anticipated. And as a result, I threw in a bunch of more mana rocks and ways to draw cards in the deck so I could like churn through it. But that Saheeli commander is much not better, but synergistic than I thought that she was beforehand. She's a lot of fun.
Dude, she's a good Izzet card, and I'm sure she'll have some good fuel when this upcoming set comes out.
Right?
There's Izzet colored stuff.
But before we actually go over the spoilers, let's go over these other certain spoilers, which are just reprints of cards we've already seen, but they're very, very special and very, very pretty reprints. And
special.
Before we do this, McB, I gotta ask you, what's your opinion on the Zendikar Expeditions and the Masterpieces?
The Zendikar Expeditions were sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, I want good cards if I'm going to get one of these, like Treasure or Masterpiece or Expedition cards.
Do you have any like glaring issues with them? For me, it was the mass number of them.
I mean, they're ugly.
Do you think they're ugly, really?
Some of them are, yeah.
Well, like, even the non-Amonkhet ones you find ugly?
Oh, the Amonkhet ones are in a league all their own. They look like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, so obviously I'm not a fan.
Mm-hmm.
But save for like Flooded Strand and a couple others, most of them are a little ugh in my world.
Wow, really?
Flooded Strand's a great one.
You didn't like any of these Zen fetches? The Scalding Tarn?
The Scalding Tarn's neat. And what's the other one? The other blue one.
Oh, the Misty Rainforest?
Yeah, Misty Rainforest is kind of neat looking, but the rest of them, you can have them.
Just not feeling it. Man.
Nope.
Rough. Well, so the reason why I ask is because masterpieces are back, but not in the traditional way, but we'll get over that in a minute. As some of you already see on the screen right now, we have new full art Planeswalkers, which I'm going to say right out of the gate, they kind of look like those counterfeits that you would see on eBay posted like 5 or 6 years ago that you'd buy for like pennies on the dollar, and it was just like a really bad foil gloss over. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
That's kind of what they look like. But at the same time, I also really love this idea of no border cards in general that aren't just on lands, but on like Planeswalkers.
But when they have an official like typeface and an official, like nice crispy lines and things like that, I think they look a lot better than the ones that people were slinging on eBay a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Professional printing, that's nice.
And they're really interesting options here. Like we have Elspeth Knight Errant, which if you look closely at that art, and the art is kind of like a lower resolution because these pictures were taken from the convention, so they're not like complete scans or anything. But this picture of Elspeth is of the dead Elspeth and from Theros, because for those of you that don't know, Elspeth died at the end of the Theros storyline, so that's why you see her with a golden mask and all that shit. So this is signifying towards the return of Elspeth, which is a great little Vorthos thing there. And what do you think of them just like... I don't think this is just like as a way to only bling out Elspeth, but to also let players, give them a little like nugget and a little Vorthos / story / here's a little present for you. What do you think about that? Like, do you see them using these kinds of cards as an avenue for more storytelling in the future?
I think it seems like a way for them to sell product.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about a couple of cards that have a pretty steep value on them out of the two like bigger Planeswalkers in there.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that you're talking about right now they're fine Planeswalkers, they're good, but like Liliana the Last Hope and the new Teferi are both like very sought after. So I personally am a fan of these, and I like their border. I like the style on them, and I would gladly buy a pack of these just because I do need a Teferi and I need a Liliana of the Last Hope.
Now, before you say you would buy the pack, what kind of price limit would you pay for this kind of stuff?
Like, if I was going to get the pack by itself, let's say.
Like a booster pack with all 8 of them. Because that's what it is. This collection is 8 masterpieces, all set as one and not randomized.
Well, I would think that, like, $10 a piece is probably fair for all of them.
Yeah. That does seem pretty fair for all that. Now, if you were to buy it, now let's say the only way you could get these were in a booster box, and that booster box was $250, and you got 24 booster packs and all 8 of these promos. Is that fair to you at all?
$280?
$250.
$250.
Yeah.
That's a lot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, how much a regular box is, like $109 or something like that?
Well, here in Oregon, about $100. But it just kind of depends on place to place. But yeah, you're going to be paying about $100 per booster box. So you're paying 2.5 times the amount for a third less of the packs, but you get a masterpiece collection of 8 guaranteed Planeswalkers.
That is pretty good. I think it's about $50 too high, 50.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Now, what if I were to tell you you can't go down to your LGS and buy these? No. You have to go to the Hasbro toy shop and buy them. That's the only way you can buy these.
That's fucked.
Yeah. I don't understand. I find it to be anti-consumer because I like the idea of having special promos available through the Hasbro website. That kind of seems like a natural evolution in terms of card distribution. That I'm fine with, but in terms of you can only get these if you buy this special booster box through the Hasbro toy shop. I don't know. It just kind of seems like a slap to the face in both the consumer, or a slap to the consumer's face and the local game store's face, because this seems like a killer product to make available for local game stores.
Yeah, and people love planeswalkers too. So having a big flight of these awesome planeswalkers is, I don't know, it seems like a no-brainer to me too, man. Like, this is something that should be available for lots of people, not just the folks that want to shop online and drop an extra 200 or 150 extra dollars on this sort of thing.
Yeah, and knowing Hasbro with their history of exclusive items on their stores, the availability is very limited. So we're probably going to be looking at a situation where these boxes might just sell out within minutes, and only a very few select amount of people will have these really good cards. And so it just, I don't know, it just doesn't. I just really don't know how I feel about it. I could be like super pissed off about it, but at the same time, I'm just not surprised at all by this move at all. This is totally indicative of what Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro have been wanting with the Magic brand for the past 18 months or so.
I wonder if this isn't them just like trying to squeeze the last little bit of money out of Magic before some sort of like big downfall. Well, as much as I don't want to say that.
You think there's going to be like a crash or something? I don't think that, but it's possible.
I don't know, man. This is a strange move. It's a strange move to me.
It is.
And making it only available on your store, it's like got kind of that hint of San Diego Comic-Con style fervor for the product. And I know that companies love that because it seems cooler than it really is, or it has an air of cool about it. But I would just like people to be able to get their hands on Magic cards more often, and certainly cards like Teferi and the Liliana that are actually worth like $70 between the two of them.
Yeah, I think
I would like people to have more access to those.
And then having super pretty versions of that, at least there's more copies of them available in the world, premium or not. So
good point.
Good point. It's just, I'm totally conflicted at this, or I'm not conflicted because I don't really see too many positives for this kind of situation, other than like it's lining Hasbro's pockets a little bit more because you're cutting out that middleman, and it's like, oh, I don't have to deal with local game stores. All right, so moving into our actual spoilers of the set. Some people were calling, shocks that were going to be coming back into Guilds of Ravnica. Other people were like, no, it's going to be the fetches. A bunch of other people were going to be like, it's just going to be a new cycle of lands. Lo and behold, we got Sacred Foundry. We got Steam Fence. We got Watery Grave. We have Overgrown Tomb. And we have Temple Garden, all with new arts. And they look fantastic, especially, like, this... The Steam Vent art, like, I think it's great art. I don't know how I feel about it being the art for Steam Vents, because it just doesn't really look like a Steam Vent to me. Then again, at the same time, what the fuck is a Steam Vent? Because every single art that they've done for these Shocklands haven't been consistent in terms of aesthetics and like what they're supposed to display, and maybe I just don't really pay attention enough to architectural structures to really identify what a Steam Vent is, what a Temple Garden is. But I don't know, they look great. Like Yo Hang Hong, I think that's how you pronounce it. I think it's probably wrong. Adam Paquette, Cliff Childs, and then Titus Lunter with that awesome Temple Garden art with that really wickedly just weird, unique perspective. It just...
Oh, now that we've been through a couple iterations of it and people have seen the originals, I think that kind of influences and makes people like next level the other art. Because we've already seen the originals were like the original casting of them, so that's going to create a baseline. And then the next time when Return to Ravnica comes back, or the last time Return to Ravnica was back, a lot of people like didn't like some of them, really did like the others. The ones with a lot of vivid colors, I think people gravitated towards. And now that we have like some contrasting, like different styles and some stuff that's clearly stood out. Now people can really take the art up to the next level, I think, with this third printing.
Yeah, and the fact that they have like this, especially with that Temple Garden, you can really tell, like, because the aesthetic of this Ravnica set is like we're entering the fall season. Things are about to get a little bit darker in the world of Ravnica, and you can really see that with Temple Garden. You can see all the browns and the yellows from the trees, and so it makes me really excited to see what that next cycle of shocks may be, if we're going to still be in the fall in the next Ravnica set, or if we're going to be full-blown winter and we're going to see like snow on these lands. That would be really sweet, like snow,
oh my god,
like a Simic growth chamber with frost in it or something.
Yo, you know what they need to do?
Or not growth chamber, but whatever, what's the breeding pool, that's what it is.
If they do 3 sets, the third set should be all of them, but winter versions of all of them.
That would be so good. And what if they do like snow, like with snow basics in the third Ravnica set, and like that's kind of the thing, is like snowlands and and like the promos for it are snow versions of the Shocklands. That's what the promos are.
Yo, that's what the masterpieces need to be. They need to be snow versions of all of them.
That would be sweet. Everyone would be fucking on that shit.
Sorry, Card Kitty, by the way. The people who customize art on Magic cards, they like, you send in cards to them, or you buy cards from them, and like their main thing is they make snowy versions of things.
Oh.
Like Sensei's Divining Top with a bunch of snow all over it and on a big field and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool.
That's one of their main like themes that they do for a lot of their customized painted on cards. And if Wizards did that, it'd be like digging right into their business. Ruthless.
Hey, I heard that these snow customizations is especially lucrative. Let's get that money.
We getting into the snow customization business.
So, moving on to the non-land cards of the set, the non-shocks. We're going to start off in Wooburg order, and our first card is Conclave Tribunal, which is 3 and a white for an enchantment with Convoke, so you can use creatures to cast it. And then when Conclave Tribunal enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Conclave Tribunal leaves the battlefield. So it's like a Oblivion Ring style effect, but you can use your creatures to help cast it. So in a go-wide strategy, this is a decent removal spell, and that's about all I can really say about this card. What do you think?
I think this is a possibly standard playable card. Because you're talking about a reduced cost O-ring. So.
Yeah, that's true. It's replacing Cast Out in the format. We do lose the Flash, which is whatever. We still have cards like Seal Away, which is Flash, but you know, you can use your creatures to help cast it. But I don't know if this is more playable over something like Ixalan's Binding. It just kind of depends on your deck. If you're running more creatures, you probably want to play this over Ixalan's Binding, but I don't know, it just kind of depends.
This reminds me a lot of the card Seed Spark for some reason.
What's that?
It's a card from original Ravnica that was like a disenchant for 4 mana. And then if you cast it using green mana, you got 2 Saprolings in addition to destroying the artifact or an enchantment.
Oh, interesting. It
was a good card. I really liked it. I loved, dude, original Ravnica, standard from original Ravnica was so fun.
Which one? The Ravnica Kamigawa standard or the Ravnica like Cold Snap Time Spiral?
Both had their merits. Both had their merits. I was a big fan of the one from Kamigawa because I liked playing like the Yosei, like Glare of Subdual. I think it was
Ghazi Glare.
Ghazi Glare.
Yeah.
Yep, that was totally it. And I splashed red for like a fireball or like a demon fire or something.
Ooh, demon fire.
Spicy.
That's that Hellbent fireball, right?
Yeah, it was great because that deck was like a deck that would dump its hand a lot of time, and you had like,
here's an uncounterable fireball.
Yep. And you were hellbent so often because you were just like, you curve out really hard, and you get a bunch of mana really fast, and so good.
Now
God, it's so good.
you can live that dream again now, but with Banefire instead of Demon Fire. So there you go.
Bane! It's Bane!
It's burn.
Fire.
So, moving on to the blue cards, because we're all out of white cards, we have Narcomoeba, which is a reprint, but it's being upgraded to rare, which Wizards of the Coast is like, oh, it's for limited, which, I mean, I guess makes sense because, you know, you have the flashback where you have to discard a card, so you could discard your Narcomoeba to do it, but it has to come from your library. So, I mean, you could use Surveil. It has synergies with Surveil, maybe some other cards. But I don't understand why a card like Narcomoeba is rare.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Maybe they didn't want to put it in uncommon, like you're saying, just because the synergy with Surveil is just like, it's good enough in limited to make it like they don't want that to be a constant thing happening in limited.
Yeah, but maybe it was an uncommon and limited, and like you just draft a bunch of as many Narcomoebas as you can find as many Surveil cards, and then just eke out a bunch of 1/1 flyers.
That's weak argument. It's weak. It's a weak argument.
Not really feeling it.
Either way, welcome back, Narcomoeba, and I'm sure we'll be playing you in Standard at some point.
Yeah, it'll definitely be utilized in a deck, especially since we have stuff like Muldrotha and other like graveyard shenanigans in the format already. It seems fun. So, moving on to our next spoiler, we have Quasi-Duplicate, or Quasi-Duplicate, however you pronounce it. So it's 1 in blue for a sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, which is very similar to another card called Mirror Image, I think, from M19, where it's a creature and you copy a creature you control. So this is a spell version of that, but it also has Jumpstart, so you can recast it again from your graveyard. What do you think about like these self-clone effects popping up in Standard a lot more often? Because this is like the third or fourth clone your creature effect that's in Standard right now.
Yeah, people like to do that though. People enjoy a clone, even though they can kind of linger in your hand sometimes.
Yeah, if you don't have a creature on your board, it's a dead card, effectively.
I still think that this is a cool one as a Jumpstart card, because when you have it, and you just, like, if you want to just dump it out of your hand or whatever, you can use it for fodder, and then have it for later on when you're like, oh, surprise flashback. Like, hey, I get a lot of value out of this when you are in the late game and you're like, play a guy and play another guy that's an exact copy of it. I don't know if it's like, you know, super standard playable, but it is a cool card, and I'm glad that this card exists, because I enjoy this Jumpstart thing. I already have predictions that I'm going to enjoy Jumpstart quite a bit.
Yeah.
And just like the last Ravnica, I will be choosing Izzet as my guild if I do in fact get to choose.
I was gonna say, it's another great mechanic that synergizes really well with Jumpstart that I probably already said beforehand is Flashback. You just discard cards with Flashback to Jumpstart. Yeah, I was thinking about building a commander deck with Melik as the commander, because Melik has always been an Izzet commander that I've always wanted to utilize, because it's just like Future Sight. It's like this weird Future Sight, but on a creature for instants and spells, and you play stuff like Jumpstart and Flashback. You get that synergy going on. Seems fun.
Is it?
I think it is.
Is it?
I think it's Dimir now, because our next spoiler is Sinister Sabotage, which is 1 in blue, counter target spell. You know, average cancel effect with Surveil 1, which this harkens back to Dissolve, which is the same card effectively, but instead of Surveil, it's Scry 1. And that card was standard playable from day 1 till the day it rotated out. And this will be the same for Surveil Sabotage, except it's only better because the card goes into your graveyard instead of the bottom of your library.
Love it. Absolutely love that. And isn't it neat how the black-blue ability synergizes well with both the red-blue and the green-black ability?
Yeah.
Like, Survey is going to feed into what goes on with the green-black one, and it also feeds into Jumpstart.
Yeah,
like,
and
it seems interweaving.
It seems fun for like drafting. Like they kind of just, I don't want to say like the decks kind of build themselves, but that's kind of what it seems like with these mechanics. Like, it kind of seems easier for players to be able to build into these multicolored decks, and it's just like, well, I have their Surveil stuff, which works with my Jumpstart stuff. Like, I don't know, seems fun. Lots of synergy.
I like that it gives you lots of avenues to go down. Like, lots of Magic is good when there's lots of fun lines that you can go down, and you don't necessarily know which one is right, but any of them could lead you down a path that's interesting. Like, you know, people say that they like to have things figured out, but I think the fun of Magic is the unknown, is not knowing whether or not your seemingly correct choice is going to lead you to something good or bad. So I just like the synergy that they're going for, and it feels strong. Even though we're only looking at like 20 cards out of the set, I'm already pretty excited about it. So yay for Magic!
Woo! We'll complain about it one day and then praise it the next. That's the dichotomy of the Magic player.
Yep, pretty much. Oh, this is awesome. Now I'm sad about it because I figured it out.
Oh. So, moving on to our next spoiler, our first black card, we have Macabre Hatchery, which is 3 in black for a sorcery. Choose a creature in your graveyard with CMC 1. Then choose a creature card with CMC 2 and a creature with CMC 3. Return those creatures to the battlefield. So it's like your normal res spell, but you get to bring a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and a 3-drop. So what do you think about a res spell like this? It is a rare, so it's something that you can't really break all that much in draft if you really wanted to, but it seems like a Golgari card, obviously. Like you said, this works well with Surveil. Like we were talking about earlier, the Golgari and Dimir mechanics working well together.
It does take stuff out of the yard, though, as opposed to putting stuff in the yard.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You use Surveil to put those creatures in the graveyard, and then this sorcery helps bring them back.
Does it say that it's a Golgari card on it? Does it have a little Golgari thing?
No, but I just assume that it is. Oh, the flavor text, there's someone from the Golgari. The card itself is foreign, and we're looking at a translation of it, but it says Golgari in the flavor text. So it's a Golgari card without the watermark. I don't know. Loose association.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a cool one, man. I'm about it. I feel like it may end up being a junk rare, but still a fun junk rare.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be too spicy and standard unless there's some weird combo deck where you can break it, but I highly doubt it. So moving on to our what were you going to say?
It kind of reminds me of that white card that returns a bunch of stuff with low CNC from your graveyard to play.
Immortal Servitude?
Yeah, I'm going to go with that, yeah.
I think from Gate Crash? Or no. Shit, it's like an X spell, and you can return X creatures with CMC 2 or less back. Yeah,
that's totally it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
And that was a fun card to play with and had a place, and it even had a deck for a while, right? And maybe this one will have a deck. Maybe I'm saying it's a bulk rare, but really this is next year's Blowout City.
I don't know about that. It does cost.
Pick them up at 25 cents. Do it, yeah.
Buy the foils while you can. So,
I'm fucking Tim Kramer on this bitch. Buy.
You should join Kevin on Market Monday. See what he says about it.
It's bull market, baby. It's always a bull market.
So, moving on to our next card, which is an actual Golgari card with the watermark. We have Necrotic Wound, which is a single black with an instant, and it's our first Undergrowth card. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So, this card seems like most of the time it's just a 1-mana target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Maybe, I don't know. Like I don't know how I feel about Undergrowth. We just have to see the rest of the set. But I mean, like, Undergrowth obviously seems synergistic with something like Dredge. Not really scavenge all that much, but just judging from this card alone, I don't really know how I feel about Undergrowth. What's your opinions on both this card and the mechanic?
The mechanic is going to need some help. Obviously, it's something that requires other cards to be synergistic with it. So, and this card, I feel like it is probably a draft card, but a draft card that how can I put this? Like you play this in your deck only if you are Golgari or blue black, right? Like, this isn't a splash card. This isn't like a solid black removal card, like a Doomblade or something. You're probably gonna you have
can play it in your
splash
red.
that in there.
You could play it in your red decks too, because you have like your discard stuff, like your tormenting voices, because that'll still be in standard.
Okay.
But
Well,
you're talking about limited, but
yeah, and I just think that this card is a little bit narrow.
Yeah,
but probably fine if you're in either Dimir or Golgari.
I think what
as for constructed, nah, not for me.
Yeah. What about like some weird like Grixis deck where you could use this with something like Jumpstart, where you're discarding cards and you Jumpstart, pitch a creature, and then use Undergrowth to shoot stuff down, like Necrotic Wound here to shoot stuff down. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that this card could get better based on the rest of the set, but that's a pretty broad statement. So
yeah. Just like judging from the small sample of cards, it doesn't really seem all that hot. But yeah, we're looking at an incredibly small sample of cards, so it's our bias is a bit kind of off. So moving on to the red cards here, we have a Legion War Boss, which is a goblin. Which,
good guy
indeed.
This is a good dude.
Yeah, very. 2 in a red for a Goblin Soldier. He's a 2/2 with Mentor, so this is our first Mentor card. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red Goblin creature token. That token gains haste until end of turn and attacks as combat if able. So it's like a fixed Goblin Rabble Master, which is what I see when I look at a card like this. It creates 1/1s that attack, but Rabble Master didn't have haste. He got buffs whenever you would attack with other goblins, if I'm not mistaken. Whereas this card just has Mentor, and it buffs your 1/1 red goblin creature tokens into 2/2s if the War Boss is attacking alongside him.
God, this guy is sweet.
Yeah.
I really think, like, I looked at this card and I was like, how is this different from Rabble Master? Was my like, I couldn't figure out where the separations were, like where they differed, and then I was like, oh, this guy's very, very similar to Rabble Master, because you get to keep the little guy that's there, and he has a 1/1 counter on him
if the War Boss attacks.
Right. So, but like, you play this guy and then you attack with him, right? Right. And that guy, the little dude that you make, gets a 1/1 counter. So he ends up being a 2/2. And then if you get to untap with him, you get to make another guy that's going to be a 2/2 also. So you end up with, like, you go from playing a Grey Ogre to having 4 power attacking to having 6 power attacking and then 8.
Yeah.
That's if this guy stays around. He's a fucking Grey Ogre, so
yeah,
obviously he's gonna have a target on his back.
Yeah, the only main difference between him and Rabble Master is Rabble Master can just sneak out wins with a huge power buff. But other than that, this seems like a great like little value train kind of card, because it's an army in a can, and it helps buff that army for you. As long as this creature can just keep getting in attacks without being blocked and or dying, yeah, seems like a great time.
Yeah, I like this guy. This is a good one.
I agree. So moving on to our green card, this is the Buy a Box promo for GCN. I can't fucking remember what it's called. I just remember the code is GCN. But we have Impervious Great Worm, which is 7 in triple green for a 16/16. So that's a nice little precedent,
16/16.
Well, hold on. So prior we had Giganosaurus or Giganotosaurus or whatever, which was 5 mana for a 10/10, but now we have 10 mana for a 16/16 with Indestructible on top of it. Oh, and you don't want to pay 10 mana for it? You don't have to, because it has Convoke. So while this card doesn't seem like a standard all-star, this is a great like casual card. Like, you show this to a new player, they're going to lose their shit over seeing a card like this.
It's a 16/16.
This is tied for the biggest creature, isn't it? Or it is the biggest creature in the
That's
game.
not a token, I think.
No. Yeah. I think the biggest creature right now is Emrakul, right? She's a 15/15.
The Merit Liege token is 2020.
Yeah, but I mean like in like an actual creature card. I think this might be the actual biggest creature in the game, because the only 15/15s I remember is Emrakul and World Spine Worm from Return to Ravnica.
All right. Yeah.
So this is the next worm in the Ravnica cycle, because the big worms for each Ravnica block have always been like these big Selesnya based worms, because the first Ravnica had like what, Otacron worm. It was the it was the Convoke one that was a 7/11, and then you had the other worm that I just said, I can't remember the name, the 15/15, and when it dies you create 3/5/5, so you get 30 power out of it, which is that's pretty decent value. And then you have Impervious Great Worm here, so to help finish off that cycle of Selesnya worms. But I love
this.
I think this is like, when I think of buy a box promos, this is the type of card that I think of. I think this is a great card for
I
like.
see this and
like
all I see is like Dune. I just see just Dune jokes for days.
The spice. Name him Impervious Spice Worm.
The spice must flow. Uso, we have worm sign the likes of which God has never seen. It's a good line from
It's
Dune.
been so long since I've seen that movie. I would join you in sharing.
Bro, we should get super high and watch Dune.
We should. God, that's such a time investment. It doesn't matter because you'll be high, so it'll just
3 hours,
go right
dude.
by.
It's gonna be the greatest 3 hours you ever spent.
That's like watching 2 episodes of our podcast back to back, so it can't be really that bad in terms of time consumption. So
Load's gun. But
I love Dune. It's a great movie. Shoot through my cheeks so I don't actually kill myself. So, moving on to our next spoiler, we have Boros Challenger here. Boros Challenger is 1 and a red for a 2/3, so that's pretty decent stats already. 2 mana, 2/3 with Mentor. Okay. And then you can pay 2 and a white and a red. Boros Challenger gets +1/+1 until end of turn, so it's a decent mana sink. What do you think about a card like this? This is probably fine in like your limited environments, but what about like constructed applications? Like if you were to slap this in a red-white aggressive deck.
yeah, I think this guy is fine because when you're casting him on curve, he's probably boosting up the smaller creature that you cast on 1.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing this in an aggressive deck. Because this guy just seems like he is an efficient dude that has a big enough base power and toughness that you're fine with playing him. Like even though he's just an Elvish warrior, he still has other abilities that are going to make him better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm fine with a guy like this.
Especially late game where you just can't use your mana on anything else. Might as well pay 8 mana and make him a 4/5 so he can get some damage in, I guess.
The question that I have is like if you have like, say you have this guy and you have the Legion War Boss guy in play, and Legion War Boss attacks, makes a 1/1, and this guy attacks, are you putting 2 counters on a small creature?
So Mentor reads, whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. So let's say in the situation where the War Boss and a 1/1 attacks, 2 Mentor triggers would go off, and let's say you have the War Boss trigger go off first or resolve first and put the +1/+1 counter on that Goblin token. Then when that Boros Challenger Mentor trigger checks for creatures and doesn't see, or it sees that the Goblin has the same power as the Boros Challenger, I don't think then that you could put the counter on it, because it needs a creature with lesser power.
Well, no, because I think you announce your attackers all at once. This is my theory on it, anyways. Is you announce your attackers all at once, you get your guy, you get the beginning of combat, and then when all the attackers are announced, Mentor looks around to see if it has a target for the 1/1 counters, and then it chooses the target, and then it puts the counter on, and then it puts the counter on. right?
It could be.
As opposed to whether or not it checks to see if it's a legal target anymore. You chose your target. And your target just has to be legal when you're choosing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the application of the counter goes on, then you're attacking with effectively the 3/3 token. If I'm reading this right, because it doesn't say as long as that attacking creature.
It could very well be. You could just spam out a bunch of 1/1s and just and a bunch of mentor creatures.
Crazy.
And just make a bunch of 3-powered creatures slowly.
That could be nuts, dude. If you have multiple guys to mentor all at once, or multiple guys with mentor to make your little dorks way bigger on attack, that would be nuts. But it goes back to Boros Challenger, I think, being a pretty good card, though.
Yeah, I think it's not like amazing, but it's fine for what it is. It's a decent uncommon. It's worthy of the uncommon position. So, I agree. Moving on to our next spoiler here, we have Ral. Is it Viceroy? So this is the first time we've seen Ral since Dragon's Maze. He costs 3 and a blue-red for 5 loyalty. So for those of you that don't know, this is already a very formulaic way of having planeswalkers in our game. So it's +1. It's another... God. So +1 card advantage, -3 is removal, -8 is win con with some extra work added in, which is the same for like Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, Obnixilis Reignited. But hey, you know what? Whatever. So let's delve a little bit more into these effects. So it's +1 is look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and put the other into your graveyard. So it's Surveil. You know, it seems good. It's -3. Ral, Is It Viceroy, deals damage to target creature equal to the number of instants and sorcery cards you own in exile and your graveyard. So it counts your stuff that you cast with Jumpstart and Flashback if you really wanted to. But so you do get to not necessarily get your value, but you do kind of get your value out of that minus with him. It has great synergy with the Is It ability is what I'm trying to get at here, which is pretty obvious. And then his ultimate, you get an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this emblem deals 4 damage to any target and you draw 2 cards.
Yeah!
That is super spicy.
I love it.
Just turns everything into a super lightning bolt and draw a bunch of cards, so I can keep casting that shit.
Come up in the world.
He has. From what I understand, he's working for Nicol Bolas, from all the murmurings that I've heard.
What a son of a bitch.
The Is It Guild is under the influence of Nicol Bolas.
Well, it is one of their... It's probably because Niv Mizzet's telling him to do it.
Well,
Bolas is like...
Well, apparently Niv Mizzet's gone. Niv Mizzet's like off doing his own thing, and Ral is running the show, which is why he's the Is It Viceroy.
Whoa, dude.
And Ral is under Nicol Bolas' influence.
Nicol Bolas is the son of a bitch, and so is it. So is old Ral, man.
Yeah.
Man. He needs his fellow brethren, Dak Vaden, to come in and tell him what's up.
They're not brothers. They're just of the same color. That's racist.
No, that's fine.
They're white men. It's fine. They're the same. So...
Wow, that was racist.
Hey, I'm just going along with the joke here. So, what do you actually think about the card himself?
I think he's a EDH card.
Yeah, he's a great EDH card. But do you think he? I mean, I think he's got standard applications. Certainly does in terms of both that plus and that minus. But
he ain't no Teferi.
You don't think he's a Teferi?
No, I do not.
Really? Even with that +1?
No, I do not.
Teferi
is a better card than this guy.
Well, yeah, question. Teferi, you get to untap your land, so you get mana for your counter spells. So yeah,
I'll say this. I like him better than forecasting costs. Ral.
The coin flip one.
Yep.
Yeah, yep. Way better.
I think this guy has a more direct line to a win versus like other Ral Zarek was just let's flip coins and have fun. Maybe you won't do anything for the turns.
It's crazy.
I saw him just like not do anything so many times, or be a forecasting cost, deal 3 damage to a creature.
Right?
Way too
It's
many
so
times.
fucking bad. It's great watching someone ultimate him and then get like 1 coin to work off of his ultimate and only take 1 extra turn. It was like, yeah, that's fucking fantastic. Thank you, Ral. This one can actually make you win the game.
You worked hard for that 1 extra turn. Suck it!
Eat my ass. All right, so moving on to our next card, we have Thought Erasure, which is blue and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card, and then it has Surveil 1. So it's a Duress with Surveil. So what do you think? I'm just gonna hold on to my opinion. Just tell me what you think.
I would like to see this paired up with other cards that make people discard card. If this is the only discard spell, I think it may be a little light on like playability. Like it's good. It is a good card. It does what you want probably your blue deck to do, which is surveil, and then it gives you some value out of it. A 1-for-1, and then it gets you something on top of that. I like that. I like the fact, but I just don't know if you're going to want to be casting this on 2 mana in a blue-black deck. I may be completely wrong on this. It may end up being like a pretty decent card, but the only thing that I haven't really to compare it to is Castigate from the original Ravnica, or the original Ravnica block, which came out in like Guild Pact, I think, because it was out for Orzhov. And that deck had a pretty good like little creature value deck with like Shrieking Affliction. Like it was a 2/1 flyer for 3 mana. If you paid black, they discard a card when it came into play, and it had other little guys that went along with it, and then Castigate. It was kind of an efficient little like, you know, underwhelming creature deck that would like take their hand away, and then a lot of times you were just winning with little guys and GT on them. So that was like a GT format thing, but that's what this reminds me of a lot, is Castigate. So I think if there are other creatures that maybe include discard with it. Oh, actually, what am I talking about? There's fucking Nicol Bolas.
Yeah.
So this is probably a card that pairs up nicely with new Nicol Bolas.
I was gonna say this card might end up being one of the better 2-drop spells in the entire format. Just like looking at like this is kind of what you want to be doing in the control decks in your early turns, anyways, because counter spells are nowadays they cost 3 mana, so you need to be able to do something on turn 2, and this is a great turn 2. Turn 1, you play your tap land. Turn 2, rip a card out of their hand, semi-draw a card by either scrying to the top or throwing it in your graveyard, and then turn 3 leaving up counter magic, and then turn 4 doing this into another 2-drop or whatever. I think this card is great in both the control type decks, and we've also seen like this blue-black mid-rangey deck show up, but once Scarab God kind of rotates out of that format, I don't know if that deck's going to survive. But we do get tools with that kind of strategy in the form of cards like Thought Erasure. And maybe I'm a bit bold in my prediction saying it's going to be one of the better cards in the format, but like, I don't know. Every time I look at this card, this is a card that I've wanted in Standard, or just a card that I've wanted in general for so long, is just like card advantage on top of a discard spell, all in one spell in general. It's not something that you rarely ever see these days, except in cards like Thought Knot Seer.
Yeah. I mean, it does go to their graveyard, though. So, in a world where graveyard stuff, or stuff being in your graveyard is good, this may be, like, it may be good and a little bit counterproductive all at the same time.
Yeah, if the format's full of, decks trying to utilize the Golgarian Izzet mechanics, maybe it's not good playing Duress and Thought Erasure type effects.
Now, will Duress be in at the same time?
Yeah, Duress is in Ixalan.
Jesus God.
So you could play like an 8-rack deck kind of without an 8-rack, or without a rack card. Just a Pox. You could build a Pox deck with Duress and this. And
you know what you do?
And counter magic.
You play this in Grixis, and then you pitch this to jumpstart something later on in the game, and you don't need to be like ripping up their hand anymore when you've already decimated their hand. It's like, oh, I'll just pitch this and go jumpstart something, hopefully.
Seems good. Seems fair.
Yeah, or you play this on 2, and then maybe counter something on turn 3, or draw some cards, or do that spell that makes them discard 2 cards, and then on 4 you cast the Nicol Bolas, and then flip it and dominate their face.
You have no cards in your hand, and look at me with my Planeswalker. You're dead.
Yep.
So, moving on to our next spoiler, we have Underrealm Lich, which is 3 and a green-black for a 4/3 creature zombie elf shaman. And it reads, if you would draw a card instead, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put 1 to your hand and the rest into your graveyard, which is strategic planning, if I'm not mistaken. And then pay for... Yeah. Pay for life, Underrealm Lich gains indestructible until end of turn, tap it, which is like this weird pseudo regeneration ability. So what do you think of a card like this? Do you think this is deserving of Mythic, where it's like a kind of super draw?
It's not even a legend, man.
No.
Like, how is this not a legend?
That'd be pretty cool if this was a legend, actually, as like your commander.
Yeah, I think so too. But a good enabler for Golgari, but again, this is an enabler that costs 5. That's a lot. 5 is a lot.
Yeah, 5 for a lot, just for your opponent to bait out removal spells, just so you can pay life into it.
God, it even dies to bolt and stuff.
It does die to bolt.
Lightning strike.
Oh yeah, lightning strike. I was about to say bolt's not in standard. It does die to lightning strike. That's for damn sure. So I don't know.
Underpowered.
You think it's underpowered?
Yep.
What
Overcost.
What if it were like a 4-drop, or what if it were at least a 4/4? Do you think it would be better?
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see this have like Loxodon Hierarch stats, like 4 mana, 4/4, and like you compare it to something like that. There you go. Loxodon Hierarch, 4 mana, 4/4, gains you 4 life when it comes into play. You can green-white sack it and throw out some ability. And that card doesn't even make it to, I think, to that level. So
yeah, but it does help turn on. It is very synergistic with your other Golgari cards, and it helps put more creatures into the graveyard to turn on your what's the mechanic for it called? I can't even fucking remember. So I mean, it is synergistic with that at the very least. But yeah, I'm kind of with you on this. This card is a bit disappointing. I really don't.
As a mythic, too?
Yeah, as a mythic, I would not be excited to open this in my pack, to be honest. This is fine as buying it as like a $2 mythic, I guess, but I don't know. Not really too hyped on that. But this card, I do think this card should have been a mythic. Amara, Soul of the Accord, is a green and a white for a legendary elf cleric. You good?
Yep.
Alright. Whenever Amara, Soul of the Accord, becomes tapped, create a 1/1 white soldier token with lifelink. And she's a 2/2. So she doesn't even have to attack. It's just when she's tapped. So it's
I didn't even see the part about lifelink.
Yep. With
wow.
lifelink. So it's a nice little combo enabler. That was the first thing when I thought. Because it's just like, oh, you tap it, makes a creature. You have an intruder alarm on the field. Hey, there's an infinite combo right there. You have an impact tremors, that's infinite damage. That's across 4 colors. But still, infinite combos with the intruder alarm right there.
Pretty good, man. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that this is probably a card that sees play as a role player. It's a rare, right?
Yeah, it's a rare. I thought this was like mythic level power, but I guess not. Because it doesn't even have to attack. You use this with Convoke, and then you just make a 1/1 with lifelink. Seems fine.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what they're going for, is you use this to Convoke stuff.
Yeah. This is definitely not like an attacker type at all. This is to help grow your defenses, as it were.
Or you attack with it, and then it makes its little 1/1. It could be an attack card. It's kind of like the Rabble Master guy, like it just keeps making little dudes.
Yeah, but it doesn't boost in power, though, as a result. It's a dinky little 2/2. It's a bear. It probably wouldn't stay on the field very long unless like
Yeah,
you
but
were to suit it up.
I think this will be more of a role player and it's a legend too, so it's got that some synergy with what the new sets. What's it called? Stuff is legendary or an artifact.
Oh, fuck, what's that called? The historic or whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
From Dominaria.
Yeah, it's historic. It's got to be good.
All right, so moving on to our final spoiler here, we have Firemind's Research, so referring back to Niv Mizzet from earlier. We have red and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on Firemind's Research. So for 1 and a blue, you can remove 2 charge counters from Firemind's Research, draw a card. It seems okay. But, I mean, you have to cast spells. I don't know. So, continuing on, pay 1 and a red, remove 5 charge counters from Firemind's Research. It deals 5 damage to any target. So, this kind of reminds me of, oh god, what's that card called from Gate Crash? It was a Boros enchantment, and it was Legion's Initiative, maybe? And it had, like, Niv Mizzet on that art, too. This kind of reminds me of that, where you have to invest a lot in order to get something out of this enchantment, because you cast this turn 2, turn 3 you can maybe cast a counter spell or 2 other dinky little spells, and then you can use its first ability immediately, or if you wait for quite some time, you can then remove 5 charge counters to deal 5 damage to any target. It is a very, very, very slow card, and I don't think I'll ever play it for any reason ever.
Yeah, it's definitely a red-blue work at it to get some sort of bonus card.
You need this card.
Not impressed.
You need this card to turn 2 every time in order for it to be a good card. If you get this on turn 5, it's garbage. You don't want to ever use it.
Yeah, you're gonna invest 2 spells into it to draw a card. Yuck. That's yuck.
2 spells and 2 mana.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. 4 mana actually, because you got to cast it and you gotta pay to remove the counters.
What do you mean?
Yuck.
Oh yeah. 4 mana. Ugh. Yeah. Fuck that card. I don't understand why it's a rare. It should have been a common.
Because when you open boosters, you want to see a "fuck you" in big letters.
God, imagine getting that as your rare. Ugh.
In a draft too.
That's your pack 3 rare, and you weren't already an Is It, and that's your pack 3 rare.
Somebody somewhere is going to take that, and they're going to draft it, and they're going to make a dope deck out of it.
Yeah.
It's going to be I got this card to kill multiple creatures by removing multiple counters.
It's going to be like this weird glass cannon-y storm deck.
Right. With that thing for crowd control or to draw you extra cards.
I don't know. I'd have to see it, but
Yeah.
hopefully that kid is dreaming hard and building that deck.
Oh, that's an adult that does that.
You think that's an adult? That's not a kid who doesn't have any money to build a real deck?
That's an adult who, well, I mean, maybe that's a kid who drafts it and it's just a shitty card that they never cast in their deck. But if an adult drafts it and they're like, oh, I'm going to build a wonky deck around this. I'm so wacky, I'm just going to make a big wacky deck. That's totally what this seems like to me.
It's kind of, it's probably going to be like that player who, they'll spend like $200 to $300 just getting all the best cards in the format, and they're building around like a really bad card. You know those players? I've seen them. Like, I see them more at modern events than I see them at standard events. Like, there's this guy who had a completely foiled out Sultai modern deck with like Tarmogoyfs and Snapcasters and Liliana of the Veils and stuff, and he was like trying to build around Grimflayer, like a Sultai Grimflayer deck, and it was just like not very good at all. Just a bunch of good cards not like functioning well together at all. That's kind of what this card reminds me of, and what you were just saying. It's just like that adult is probably building that deck.
Like, I put together a sweet Lotleth Troll deck. Good times.
Oh man, that'd be a great reprint. I love Lotleth Troll.
That'd be a fun reprint. If there's cards to support it, I'd say it's good.
Or like even the Loxodon that you were referring to earlier, that would also be a really good reprint as well.
That was one of my favorite cards in that Celestia deck.
Mm.
The Ghazi Glare deck.
Or both of the Loxodons, both that one and the one from Return to Ravnica, the one that with the Obstinate Bailiff effect on it.
Yeah.
That'd be really sweet.
He's a big boy. He's a big old elephant.
A boy can dream. So, that rounds up our spoiler video and episode 8 of the Mana Dorks Podcast. Thank you very much, McBee, for joining me.
You're welcome.
And
Magic cards.
Woo!
Yeah.
High five. Clap. I'll add the clap in post. Let's do it again.
Okay. We're white.
Woo!
One more time.
All right. As always, my name's Tasty Snackies. You all been wonderful, and I'll catch you on the flip side.